All right, we're on the green light. Good evening. Welcome to the Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee. This is Monday, May 6, 2019. It is now about 5:31 p.m. And if you would call the roll, please.
Chairperson Cardinal, Vice Chair Hanneman,
Here.
Member Barrett,
Here.
Member Bolentini-Wolf,
Here.
Member Powell, Member Smith.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Thank you. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Carson City Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. So is there anyone who has any public comment at this time? Seeing none, we will go to item number 3, which is for possible action, approval of the minutes of March 4th of 2019.
I move we accept the minutes or whatever we do. Move the minutes be approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so approved. We're now moving on to item number 4, which is meeting items. 4A, for possible action, discussion and possible action to make a recommendation to the Redevelopment Authority regarding the expenditure of up to $7,284 for special event funding from the Redevelopment Revolving Fund Special Events Account for fiscal year 2019. Lee, would you give us a staff summary, please?
Sure. Very briefly, the staff report is obviously attached with your packets as well as the complete applications from the 2 applicants. This is the time at which you have annually reviewed a request for special event funding for the upcoming fiscal year 2020. $10,000 has been included in the budget for special events. We've received 2 applications, one for $4,500 for the Taste of Downtown event. Lisa Lee is here for that event. And the other one is, the second application is for the 2019 Carson City, Nevada Fair, in the amount of $2,784. I'll note that both applicants are here, so after this brief presentation, they're here and available for questions. I would just like to, so with those applications, with both applications, the total is within the budgets, it's $7,284 total. That's why the action item is for the expenditure of up to that amount, with the recommended motions being taken individually for each application, for an amount on each application. The only other thing I would like to note before opening it up to questions on these applications is that, as I know, there's $10,000 in the budget this year, but tentatively speaking, in our budget allocation plan for upcoming years, we are not going to have funds in the special event account for this year. They'll still be in the arts special events account, but not this account. Assuming this is the last year that we have this process of taking applications, we'll look in the next year to come back to you with an amendment regarding special event policies and procedures. But at this time, I'd open it up for questions on these applications.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Both applications were very thorough, and we appreciate that very much. So if you would like to maybe come up, Lisa, and see if there's, if anybody wants to entertain any questions. Oh, excuse me, Lisa Lee, and then you. Or you can both come up together, Lisa's, whatever. No, let's wait for Lisa Lee, and then we'll have you. Okay, Lisa? 2 Lisas, sorry. So anyway, does anybody have any questions for Lisa Lee? Well, you might want to start off and tell us how many years that this has been going on.
This is going to be our 26th year, and I'd really like to thank the city. They've been very generous with us over the years of helping us promote the Taste. And the Taste has been, I like to think, instrumental in helping turn downtown Carson City into a dining district. It kind of got people going back down there and seeing the potential. And what we're asking for is for funds to help us reimburse the restaurants that participate. We'll have probably, we had 40, I think 45 last year. We'll probably have 40 to 45 this year, and we pay the restaurants per taste. And so this helps offset the cost for us, and then we have also another 1,000 in there to help offset the cost of live entertainment that we will fund. Spend about $9,000 on that.
All right, hopefully it's a good moneymaker for a good cause. So does anybody, Michael, do you have any questions at all on this?
No, not a question, just a comment. I know last year was my first year to attend the Taste of Downtown, and I must say that I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was a lot of people out having fun, and seems like everything was peaceful and quiet. I didn't see Sheriff Furlong or his deputies have to apprehend anyone. They was having a great time, and everyone seems to be conducting themselves in a good manner, so.
I've been told by the sheriff that this is one of the events that their deputies enjoy doing. That it's not too rowdy, and they enjoy seeing all the people come downtown. And as you don't know, because this was your first year in town, we had been on Curry Street, and because of the redevelopment, we moved it to Main Street last year, and everybody's loved it better on Main Street, so it looks like we're going to stay on Main Street.
Angela, you had a comment?
I did have a comment. I just wanted to raise the issue that I own a restaurant, Gather, that will be participating in the event, and given that this is a request to reimburse participating restaurants, if you would prefer that I abstain from the vote.
Ben Johnson, Deputy District Attorney for the record. If you felt that it was a disqualifying conflict of interest, you would abstain from voting. So I feel it would be appropriate in this case.
Appropriate to abstain?
From the vote on this one, correct.
That would be fine.
There goes my chance to vote no.
I don't know, I see you
Okay,
down there at
Jen.
the Taste having too much
Yeah,
fun.
I see that too. Okay, so if there are no further questions that from the committee, shall we go ahead and make a motion? Somebody entertain a motion to approve the $4,500 for funding for the Taste of Downtown.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve the funding of the $4,500 for the Taste of Downtown for 2019.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Lisa. And let's hope we have another one abstention, yes, for the reasons so stated. So hopefully we'll have another great event. Okay, now Lisa, number 2 or number 1, however you wish to be. So just about a minute synopsis, because we've already read all the stuff.
My name is Lisa Taylor. I work with the Cooperative Extension Service here in Carson City. Would certainly appreciate the opportunity to again share our interest in providing a family-friendly event that would certainly help us promote not only our region, but certainly as it relates to the opportunities that might be here on the southern region of our city. This particular event has been 2 years in the making, and certainly with that, we've learned a lot of things. We are now shifting the leadership so that while the Extension Service has been the primary leader, we have 2 individuals that are the chairs and certainly are working towards actually a nonprofit organization. One thing that's really exciting is that we have a new entertainment opportunity related to a demolition derby, which not only will reinforce that family-friendly piece, but right now they've had 33,000 views as it relates to Facebook and promoting the fair and this potential opportunity. So as we think about not only what we're trying to do to promote the event, but certainly as it relates to certainly providing opportunities for our families to participate and to be part of a very historic and an element that creates momentum as it relates to youth in our community. That's what we're certainly here about. And it is the tents that we need in order to actually have our livestock and in a safe, also a cooler environment that's critical to our process. And at this point, we're doing some primary fundraising events at this point, so that this would just help us make sure that not only the event for the youth could be put together, but also that as it relates to a pivotal point, which is animals participating and showing certainly how those youth have used that as a skill building and leadership oriented process, that it actually can take place.
Thank you for the synopsis. Does anybody have any questions or comment for Lisa? Okay, are we ready to make a motion? Anybody?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make the motion that we move to accept the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension in the amount of, is that $2,784 for 2019?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you both for
Thank you.
all
Thank you very
the hoops you had to go through. We have to talk about this on some further agenda item.
Okay.
Okay, moving right along to 4B for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding the expenditure up to $25,000 from the Facade Improvement Program Fund for facade improvements to the building located at 801 North Carson Street, known as the Nolan Inn, which used to be known as the Back on Track, within Redevelopment Area 1. So, Lee, do you want to speak on to this?
Yes, thank you. This is an application for facade improvement grant money, for which the Citizens Committee has final decision authority, whereas like the last one was a recommendation to Redevelopment Authority, you actually make the final decision on authorization of this funding. This is an application for, as you said, the Nolan Inn, which was formerly the Back on Track for a fairly long time. It's on Carson Street at the corner of Washington Street, right in the core of downtown on the new street improvements. This is up on the screen there is a photo of the current building, basically as it is now. That's from Google Street View, and then with the new improvements down below. The improvements include a new facade on two of those faces. It's just going to be on this corner of the building that's facing Carson Street, and the portion here facing Washington Street, and not a refacade of the entire building. However, the entire building is getting repainted. It includes removal of the existing siding and stone and replacement with new lap siding, adding new windows and decorative windows, and as I said, new paint on the entire building. In terms of eligibility, this property is a non-residential property in Redevelopment Area 1 and is therefore eligible. It involves, in terms of the eligible improvement, it involves at least two types of trades. In this case, carpentry and painting. In this case, this is really a complete facade replacement and improvement on the location where they plan on doing that on the building. The only other thing I wanted to note, I'll note the applicants here, so if you have questions on the project and what they'll be doing, is that this property in the past has been the subject of code enforcement. It's not currently, as I stated in there, there's not an active case on it, although we have done through our motel inspection program. There was an inspection done in March, and they have some things that they need to correct. I'll note that in your approval and in the conditions of approval that you'll be noting is a requirement that they complete those improvements before getting reimbursed the facade improvement funds. Staff, we don't have a concern that they're not going to get those done. This new ownership, we're encouraged by the activity that's been done. As soon as basically they took ownership of it, they started improving the office and some of the rooms. So they're working on it diligently to fix up the place, and we think this facade improvement along there will make the building look a little better as well. So I'll conclude my presentation with that. As I note, they're here if you have any questions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, could the applicants come up for any questions, please?
Oh, good.
I'm Tanya Jo Nolan, owner of the Nolan Inn, with my husband and my father-in-law, Jacob and Gary. Yes, I am.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the new Nolan Inn and what you're going to do.
Well, as you guys well know, we purchased the property. It closed January 23rd of this year. We purchased it, as you see, as is. We've completely redone the bottom office, which is where we have a lot of traffic coming in. We have our residents coming in to check mail. We've cleaned up the parking lot. We're working on the upper deck. Once, this is all settled and decided, we've submitted our paint colors. We're just trying to make it not such an eyesore. We're local here. We have our family here. We have our children here. We drive by it all the time. We want people to see like, wow, that's a nice place. Not what it looks like now. So slowly but surely, we're making the improvements on it.
Lee had just said that you've worked on some of the rooms. It was my understanding that when you took control, or before you took control of it, they weren't too good. What have you been doing in the rooms for the residents?
A lot of the rooms, we've been improving them as people are leaving. It's a stopping place for some people and more of a permanent place for other people. It's redoing bathrooms, refinishing bathtubs if needed with a porcelain epoxy, touching up paint, things like that, re-siliconing windows, caulking things, and putting in, as appropriate, laminate flooring. And that also includes new showers if needed, new toilets if needed, and new vanities as well. And we've furnished them with brand new beds, brand new dressers, brand new flat screen TVs.
Great. One of my concerns may be slightly off, but it's the general area, has been that some people in these places use hot plates. And I'm sure that they're not allowed, but they have done it. Have you gotten them out of there? Or
Yes, sir. We've been completely compliant with all of the codes and all of when we have the hotel thing. We're slowly working through. Jake's in contact with Lee, and I'm in contact with Bill. I'm so sorry, I can't pronounce his last name. With what's going on through email, at least once, twice a month. We're getting everything up to date as soon as possible, within a reasonable time, and it'll be taken care of.
Thank
It's
you
going to be
very
a nice
much.
place.
Good.
So I have a question. Of course, the city can match up here and we're up to a maximum of 25,000. So you introduce yourself and your husband. You said your husband and your father?
My husband and my father-in-law, yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm looking at the professional painting estimate here. Is this Nolan painting with Gary Nolan, happens to be related to the Nolan Inn?
Yes, sir.
So, would you, I guess I'm looking at possibly, coming to this body committee to request for funding. And I'm not saying it could be nepotism, but I have to look at this and ask this question, Lee. We have the owners here, and yet there's a professional painting for the bid of labor and materials of $42,000. So can you expound on that a little bit for me, please?
Yeah, I intended to talk about that a little bit in my presentation. I forgot, because actually as part of the motion, they are requesting, as part of it, to grant a waiver of the policy requiring 3 bids. So if not sure if you remember the discussion, if you were here yet, when there's a requirement to get 3 bids. However, it's come up through the process that we have some contractors in town, the Nolans being one, who really aren't going to get bids from other painters. So this is how they would bid it for a project. This is what their estimated cost would be if they were doing it for someone else. They are obviously going to do the painting. No one's going to give them, another paint company's not going to give them a bid for painting because they know they're not going to give them a reasonable bid at least, because they know they're going to be the ones doing the work. So in terms of the painting, that's a cost estimate. It's also a bid from a contractor that they work with to do the contractor work on the building. But not unusual. We've had this before where contractors are requesting applications and they give their own actual cost estimates and cost, and we reimburse based on their cost.
Yes, and case to point, we had that same thing on McFadden Plaza. A number of the buildings there, it was an owner contractor, so there's a precedent for this.
And it's actually the purpose for the waiver where, well, in addition to a time when it's just hard to get contractors out to get work done and give bids anyway. Part of that requirement, the waiver, was to address this situation where contractors are applying for the money.
Unless I'm overlooking something, I only see 2 bids. You said there's supposed to be 3?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you have the ability to grant a waiver. They have not submitted 3 bids for the amount of the work. And there's a little bit of an explanation in there, and they could talk about that, and I kind of just explained it regarding the painting. So there's a requirement for 3 bids. However, your facade improvement policies allow you, as the Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee, to grant a waiver to that requirement based on the particular circumstances of an application.
And Lee, I don't think I remember one application that's had 3 full bids since the very beginning when this was done, which was not at the very high time for building, so.
Yeah, I will say maybe one. I think 410, he spent a lot of time, and he took a lot of time before he submitted it, probably longer. But generally, there have been a lot that haven't been able to get the 3 bids, yes. And also I note in there, in terms of concern with the $25,000, I think if you add up all the work, perhaps there would be a reduction, but the amount they're putting in is well over the 50,000 that would allow up to the 25,000. So I believe it's appropriate to allocate the $25,000 for the improvements.
Mrs. Nolan, how many rooms does the Nolan Inn currently have at this
There's
time?
33 rooms in an office.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
I would just echo the concerns raised by Member Smith as far as the public funds going to a single bid provided by an owner contractor. I respect that the precedent may have been set in the past, but I would be cautious that we not continue to at least question this practice. I would feel more comfortable. Mr. Plemmel had indicated that the total bid for the facade work far exceeds the $25,000 requested, but I would feel more comfortable that it was more appropriate use of public funds if those funds were specifically allocated to a piece of the facade project that wasn't bid on by your own company.
It's actually not bid by us. The contractor that did it to redo the facade.
Sir, if you'd like to comment, I'd invite you to sit at the table.
Yes, ma'am. It was Nevada Western. They did the bid to do the facade. We just did the bid for the painting. This is the bid for all the contract work, all the facade and the carpentry work. So it's a separate bid.
So just to do the facade in the front, redo it all, take all the old rock, all the siding, put all new windows. They're gonna do the whole side of the building, redo the deck around it, and it'll probably cost me 35, 40 grand just for the contractor, the builder, which we can't do because I'm not a building contractor. I'm a painting contractor.
Sure,
So
and I
his bid-
understand all.
His bid will be 35, 40,000.
Sure, and that precisely goes to my point,
Right.
and that is my concern, and I think, and Mr. Plemmel raised it. What I would like to voice as being part of this board is that public funds should be allocated to, not to owner contractor work, but to work that cannot be done.
Right. I see what you're saying. But we're not doing it. We're having somebody do that. So it's not allocated to us. We were just stating as a painter, we're gonna paint the building ourselves because that's what we do. It makes sense. And so the money's really just to improve the building, like the building you're in. I know who owns the building, and they got 3 grants for 3 different parts of your building because there's 3 different addresses, right?
I'm not sure what point you're trying to raise.
Well, the whole point is try to make downtown look amazing. I mean, I've been in town 33 years. I live 7 doors down from the governor's mansion for 27 years. And the whole point is to make downtown amazing, right?
I would wholeheartedly support that.
Right.
The point that I'm raising is if I I think that we should pause when we're being considered to allocate public funds to an owner contractor looking for those public funds. I mean, just to kind of spell this out, you had submitted a bid for $42,200 for the painting. But my simple question is, you're doing the work yourself, so what kind of discount is truly allocated? This
Gotcha.
appears to me as to be a market value bid.
Sure. So pretend the painting's not in fault. It'll cost more than what you're giving us just to do the facade. So don't
Sure,
worry about
and
that.
I
Don't worry about-
understand-
We're not collecting any money.
Sir,
It's
I
gonna be
understand
well
that
spent
point,
more
and
than
that point was raised by Mr. Plemmel.
Gotcha.
And
Right.
I don't have a problem with that, but I do want to voice the issue raised by this.
Sure.
And public funds going to owner contractors and the work that they're submitting as a market bid.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying, but the bid for just the facade without even us painting it or touching it is still $32,000, and that goes to a completely separate entity and company than what we are.
Yeah, that doesn't go to us.
That doesn't go to us at all.
That doesn't go to us.
So it's the bid for the Western Nevada Construction Company for
That's-
32,000, and
That's what I'm trying to say.
Even.
It doesn't even go to us. That doesn't even touch us. That'll never even see me.
The point is taken. Thank you.
Gotcha.
And to clarify, you're right. It's 50% reimbursement to the contractor's work plus their work for painting is what the facade improvement grant would allow and would reimburse. So to your point, yes, it does include your painting in
But
the 50%
But what
reimbursement.
I was told and what I think I understand was that the 25 and we matched the 25, right? I'm just saying, so in total, so
In total,
50,000,
50,000.
which we have 25 tonight, whatever you needed. I have my part. And if there's any confusion, which there shouldn't be, is why would I pay somebody 20, 30,000 to paint a building that I'm gonna do? It just makes sense. I'll do my own work. I paint most of the buildings in this town. So it makes sense. But the money, again, I repeat, for the thing is well exceeds what I'm getting. It'll never even go to me. You can write the check to NWC if you want. I don't care. And doesn't even cover it. I'm still gonna add a fortune out of my pocket. I've already spent $100,000 in 90 days there.
and our names on that, along with our
That's my
painting
building.
company.
Like I'm not a renter. I own it.
We don't want to have our name associated with a building that looks like that. We want to make it one of the best looking places. We're the mouth of downtown. Where it's Nolan Painting is the Nolan Inn. My husband's been here his whole life, my father-in-law as well. And so our last name and our business is associated with that. We just want to improve it. We want to make a nice part for downtown. We're raising our 5 children here. We want them to go by and look, that's our building.
Thank you.
Okay, you have something else, Lee?
Yeah, so let me tell you what we've done in the past when a contractor owns a building that needs improvements, another contractor is not going to give them a bid to go do the work because they know that contractor is going to do the work. So
I
it's kinda
understand
hard.
that conflict.
So
I
what we did and what I would propose to do with this painting is it's not we just hand over the money. We actually do a time and materials. The information we get from them is actually what they pay subcontractors, their materials, and time. So it's a little bit more of a detail of their actual cost. And so I would propose with the painting, that's what we would do in this case. I'd put that on the record is from them get the time and materials actual cost rather than as you call it,
market
a
bid.
retail market bid and reimburse based on half of that. So that's what we would do in this case where they're the ones doing it.
Thank you.
Also, the full facade improvement, as it reads here, is estimated to be $72,200, of which we're not paying half. We're just doing the $25,000.
And I understand that point. That point's taken. Thank you.
And I have to tell you, this has been a sticking point from the very beginning because of the fact, as Lee said, we have had contractors, owners, and it's been a problem. So where are we? Anybody else have any questions? Do you have anything else to add?
I do.
Yes, go.
That was the whole point of buying it. I own a bunch of houses. We got businesses, but I took it on as a project because I thought it'd be fun. I'm young. I'm 38 today. Actually, is my birthday. I'm not saying it'd be funny. It actually is today. But we took it on because everybody knows us. My uncle owns one of the downtown coin shops. My brother's a lawyer in town. All of our family's here. My sister works on Washington Street. She's a hygienist. But we've been here. We took it on because we just want to we'll make it amazing. Whether you guys want to help, and I'm not saying that to be funny or not, I'm going to make it amazing. And whether I keep it for 10 years or 2 years, it's going to look amazing when I'm done with it.
Well, I'm
It just
glad,
would be fun to have you support us because we've been in this town like 35 years, supporting everything and.
sir, you're
doing
here
stuff.
because we sent you here. We told you
Well, no, I'm just
that,
saying we're
yeah.
here. We're kind of excited to do it. And
Yeah.
Lee's a good guy. I like Lee. I met him 4 months ago and he's fun to work with.
It's an
and
exciting project. It's
kinda
exciting
fun.
to see that thousands of people drive by that a day, and it's going to be
It's fun.
completely different.
Okay, I'm amazed that you're amazed that it's going to be amazing.
Fun.
So I think
It's a
it's going,
project.
I think it's going to be wonderful. Okay, so John, you are unnaturally quiet here tonight. Do you have anything to add?
I always like it when Ronnie points at me and says I'm unnaturally quiet. That probably means I should continue being quiet. I understand the concern that Michael and Angela are putting on the table. You could make the argument that under these circumstances, that it should be half of the amount going to the other contractor, which would be less than the 25. I think that's the point they're trying to make. But as I say, we've had precedent on this before, so it didn't concern me as much. But your points are well taken. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Angela. But I imagine we'll go forward as it is.
And for a future agenda item, maybe taking this back to the Board of Supervisors to revise, because all of this came out of the Board of Supervisors, not here. So they would have to do the revisions. And as Lee told you, we have the final say on this, not the Board of Supervisors. So this is one of the few things that we can actually do without Mama and Papa slapping us down. So, but
I resemble that statement.
so anyway, do you have any other questions or comments or anything from the public on this topic? No? All right, then I will entertain a motion.
I think it's going to devolve to me to make the motion. I'll so move.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Got it, yes.
Or you got to,
I'm sorry, a second. Anybody for a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so carried in one nay? Okay. So go forth, make this look amazing. We're going to watch this and photograph it all the way through.
Cool.
Okay?
Thank
be
you
great.
so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That'd be great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I leave that one on because that's where people sit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, turn it off. Yes.
Okay, another one here is for possible discussion and possible action to make a recommendation to the Redevelopment Authority. This, again, is just a recommendation. We don't have the final say regarding the expenditure of up to $50,000 for a remodel of the front outside area of the Children's Museum located at 813 North Carson Street. And I will tell you, that is right beside the building that we just talked about. So I think that is important to note. So Lee, do you want to talk about this one?
Yes, and actually, the amount for, this is regarding the Children's Museum. This is a project, this exterior front remodel and this front area remodel has been kind of on the radar for about 2 years now with the Children's Museum, going back to when the Redevelopment Authority didn't have enough funds to fund this. And so there is $50,000 placed in the fiscal year 2020 budget for this project. And now they've gone to the Historic Resource Commission, they've gone to the Planning Commission and got approval of a design. And now they're coming forward to request authorization of the expenditure of the funds for the project. I will note that they're requesting an amount of $43,200 at this time. There's a plan in there to include a sign that would remove some of the existing signage off the front of the building and consolidate on to a freestanding sign, which I support conceptually in the visual of it, that would be good to consolidate that signage onto a message center sign, and planning department supports that, but that requires some additional approval to get to that point, so that's not included in this authorization for expenditure. That's something they would need to come back for. So the sign's not part of this expenditure at this time. Also, the project has morphed a little bit from the conceptuals that you saw a few months ago, primarily based on after the State Historic Preservation Office reviewed it, and they've made some they won't allow some of the taller fence that was requested that would have enclosed a play area, so some of the play area equipment is not included now. However, the plaza itself is in disrepair, as this picture shows in particular, with concrete lifting, and you have other pictures in there, and you've probably been out there. It is still in need of repair and new furniture in the area. So they're moving forward now with that portion of it, still working with the Carson City Historic Resource Commission and State Historic Preservation Office on some other details related to it, but they're requesting authorization to move forward with those expenditures tonight. And John Kopelos and Benjamin Korn from the Children's Museum are here to answer any of your questions regarding this project.
I just have one quick question so that we don't get bogged down this maybe in the future. Are we considering signage because it's not part of the facade improvement program? Because that was very much a bone of contention.
Right, and well, we're not considering signage because they don't have signage for you to consider tonight.
Yeah, I know, but that's for the
So I
future.
think that'll be a discussion with the future, because that's right. This is not facade improvements. This is not part of facade improvements money. This is making this public property look better in general. So I think it would fit under that. It'll be up to you, and ultimately when that comes forward, if that's appropriate or not.
I just think that they should be forewarned that it might be a problem, because we've had problems with signage in the past, so. Okay, if you guys want to come up, please, and introduce yourselves for the record.
Hi there. My name is Benjamin Korn. I'm the director of the museum.
And I'm Casey Gillis. I'm the president of the board.
Okay, what would you like to tell us that we don't already know?
Well, you probably know a lot about it, just because we've been working on this for a while. The short version of this is that the State Historical Preservation Office came into the game at the 11th hour and essentially told us that the height of it couldn't be raised, and this was a problem with the playground aspect of the job. So we decided as an organization that we would forego the playground part of it, because we were concerned that children would go over the fence and possibly out onto the street. So we decided if we couldn't raise the fencing any higher, because it would impact the view of the facade of the front of the building, then we were gonna not do the playground. But we still wanted to freshen it up, and we were concerned, as this picture points out, that the concrete we're having issues with the concrete. So that's what necessitated this latest revision. And then the sign issue we think is important, because right now we have sponsorship signs that are on the fencing, and in fact.
Yeah, but we're not discussing signs tonight, so let's just go with the 43,000.
Yeah, so then that's it in a nutshell.
And we decided to add some new picnic tables, work on the aesthetics of the front of the building, since we can't do the other project. We still can go forward with safety and making it look better, making a comfortable place, because we don't have any place inside for parents to sit and really eat with the children. Put some nice looking picnic tables, keep what we have that is still workable now that we don't have to remove to make room, and clean up some of the areas. We've worked with some landscapers on how we can still keep the look of the building and make it look nicer for the main street.
Okay, so there's not going to be a dedicated area at all for the kids. So everybody, this has access to the public. The picnic
Correct.
table, everything is access to the public.
No gates, no hardware of any kind, that's been scrapped.
Boy, that's really a difference. So Angela, do you have anything you'd like to?
I guess I'm wondering, I don't know, this may be a dumb question. Could, the Historical Society wouldn't work with you on it, given the use of the property?
The late Robin Reed was the lady. What had happened is with all our meetings last year, with all of you, the city, and we're thinking this is a city building, and fire marshal and everyone, not once was it mentioned that there was covenants with the state. We never even knew to contact her. All of a sudden, in March, we hear from the state. We had her come down, we explained how the City Historical Commission was okay with the higher fencing because of the height of the building and all of that. She said absolutely no fencing, no, not higher, and she wasn't even happy with putting a gate across the front to block the view. Like I say, she kind of suggested a sign would be, out there, would take down our old wooden signs, but that's another project. But once we knew we couldn't gate or fence in a way that would be safe, like I say, we've thought of maybe that we've seen places where they put chimes and that on the fencing and make something for kids to do. But again, if you're out there too long and mom looks down at her cell phone and we don't have a safety for the children, we're just not comfortable. So we want to make it look good for the main street, get rid of the cement for safety reasons, put in the picnic tables, do the best we can. But it just appears there's no way this is what our dream was and our plan. We had bids coming in. We've had to stop it all.
Yeah, I don't want to open a can of worms, but it seems like just the comings and goings of children without any type of fencing in front of the Children's Museum is a problem. And I don't want to raise that to give you a roadblock, certainly, and that's not why I raise it. I would just make a comment on the record for the Historical Society that, we have a very well-loved and well-used Children's Museum here in Carson City, and to really, I think, maximize the potential of that property is the better way to go over some of these decisions that the Historical Society apparently has made, so.
We will keep the existing fence, which helps. It doesn't have the gate across the front, doesn't block the front, but we will keep what we have.
Sure. Thanks. Good luck.
Michael? Nothing? All right. Do you have any questions?
I'm definitely going to stay silent now.
Oh my, I intimidated him, I guess.
No, you didn't.
Okay. Well, I think,
Somebody not here.
I think that, let me just add my 2 cents. I think I was surprised to see this because like you, it was supposed to be completely different. Safe play area for the kids to be outside and the whole bit. And now I see it's basically still a thoroughfare for the public and anybody can sit out there and eat their lunch. You've got, that's an interesting part of the city. I'm just surprised that you can't do more as a result of making it more play-friendly. It's just almost like a facade improvement outside more than anything else.
The suggestion that was posed to us by the State Historical Preservation Office individual was possibly that a play area could work on the side of the building, but we scrapped that idea because it's so badly shaded from the sun, and it's during the winter, it's the snow and ice that's there just doesn't make it workable, and we're looking at a couple $100,000 in grants that we'd have to rip up the street, and it's just I think it would just be not feasible. It would be just the huge project.
We're just going to continue to try to improve the inside, and we have a lot of things in the works right now to enhance what's inside, and this is what we'll have.
Well, as you
almost
know,
for
this
there.
funding is for the outside, so, so anyway, does anybody have any other comments or suggestions or whatever before we call for a motion? Okay.
Madam Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we authorize the expenditure of $43,200 to complete the outside improvements of the Children's Museum.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make this amazing, just like the amazing.
It'll be
Noel
amazing.
Inn. Okay, I want this to be amazing.
And thank you. I know you have spent time too this last year trying to help us out with this, and we're disappointed, but we'll make it amazing. Thank you.
I hope so. Okay.
We won't.
Well, it's not easy working with the Historical Society. Thank you. Okay, then. All right. We're now moving right along. 4D, presentation and discussion only regarding an update and to solicit public comments on the 60% design of South Carson Street Complete Streets project. So Dan Stuckey.
Great. Good evening, committee. Dan Stuckey, city engineer for the record. We have Tom Grundy. He is the project manager for this project, who you've seen before. Last time we were here was December 5th, so it's been a while. That was for the 30% update. A lot's happened since then. We want to come back. As you know, the redevelopment, there's $200,000 contributed to this project. And so as part of this, we want to report back to you and make sure you know how the project is progressing. So the goal for today is to give you an update of what we've been doing since December 5th, when we last saw you, up until now. We'll get into a little bit of specific design details as far as how the design has progressed since then, as we've moved from the 30% to the 60% stage. And then the last couple of slides, we'll talk about project schedule, give you an update on where we're going to be going with the project here when construction is anticipated to start. And then lastly, I always like to take the opportunity when we're in the public setting to talk about different tools that we have available to the public to stay connected, not only during the design, but also when we start construction. We think that's important. As you guys know, it's a complete streets project from 5th Street all the way down to near Appian Way to the south. I'm not going to get into the specific project details just because I reported them to you last time. I'll mention it throughout, but we have a ton of information on the south, the Carson Proud website. I'll go over that in more detail. There's a flyover video. There's update from all of our different committee meetings that we've been to. So if you want to get more for the public out there, if you want to get more information, that is a very good resource that we try to keep as updated as possible. So as I mentioned, December 5th, we were here in front of you. Since then, December 11th, we held kind of our initial kickoff public meeting. It was very well attended. We had it over at the Sheriff's Ormsby Room, over at the Public Safety Complex, probably, I would say 80 to 100 people there. Really good. We gave about a 20, 25-minute presentation going through the project. And then we had different boards, maps of the project, illustrative maps where the public could go around. We had a lot of staff there to be able to, people could come around and ask questions to staff on the project. The date is wrong on bullet number 2. I apologize. That should be December 20th. And that's when we went to the Board of Supervisors for our 30% update and approval to proceed with the project to the 60% design level. And then January 10th, this is a very important meeting. We met with the Historical Resources Commission. And when we were here, it was a joint meeting with HRC when we were in front of you. And we mentioned that we were coming back. But it was important for us. One of the checks that we do with these projects, major projects, is we look at impacts that this project might have, not only environmentally, but also on historical and cultural resources. So part of that progression is meeting with the HRC and doing some other type of outreach and research there. As you know, this project's staying within the existing footprint, so there shouldn't be, we're doing it's called a categorical exclusion, so we expect minimum impacts, but it's still a process that we go through. So that was on January 10th. Between January and March, we've been, the design team's working really hard to progress that design from 30 to 60. And I think the public probably doesn't see, I guess to the naked eye, it doesn't look like there's been a lot done because a lot of it's kind of happening below the surface, if you will. A lot of utility design. I'll discuss some of that here, but a lot's been done between 30 and 60. March 13th, we went to RTC. We gave probably about a 45-minute presentation there, responded to a lot of their comments that they had at the 30% design stage, and it was a good, productive meeting. April 12th, we held another public workshop. And that's incorrect as well. I apologize. It was not at the Brick. It was at the Adams Hub there in the big conference room area. Apologies for the error there. Another pretty decent turnout. This was a little different format than the initial meeting that we had December. This is more of an opportunity for people to get down more into the design details with the project team, less presentation like. Basically, we just had staff around the room. Again, we had the illustrative maps listed there, and people could talk details. We had, like I said, 35 or so people there. Some of them were interested public, and then we also had some business owners along the corridor who we talked about their specific site. So again, I think it was a good success there. I did, again, want to mention Carson Proud website updates that we've been continually updating, as I discussed earlier, with all sorts of information there. So the design progression, I did want to talk about a couple of things that I thought might be of interest to you guys. Again, we had a much more thorough list that we talked through with RTC, getting their feedback on some things and reporting back to them on some comments that they had. But I thought I just want to hit on some high-level items for you all. And in your packet, you did have the RTC presentation with the illustrative maps there, which if you would like to have comments after this, we can definitely discuss those. One of the things that we did between the 30 and 60 was we further evaluated, we call them deceleration lanes, but essentially that's areas where in busy, heavy turn areas, you provide kind of an extra turn pocket there to allow traffic that's moving straight to continue to flow through the street while other cars can pull off to the side and be able to turn. We did add a couple of those areas, one at northbound right turn pocket at Coons, and then northbound right turn pocket at 5th Street. So that was extended or added to the design. And then also on the leftbound turn pockets, we extended some of those again to help with moving traffic through more efficiently through the corridor. So those are some minor tweaks that you may not notice, but they're definitely important from an overall design standpoint. As I mentioned earlier, underground utility design, lots going on there, looking at, we have, and I know I discussed this last time, but water, sewer, major stormwater improvements. We also have fiber optic lines that are running down, electrical. So there's lots going on underneath the surface. Part of this is refining that design, looking where there's existing utilities, making sure we're not hitting them with our new utilities. That's something obviously you'd want to avoid. So that's kind of what's happening through this 30 to 60% stage. Landscaping and street lighting. This was, and I think you all made comments last time, RTC's made comments, but ensuring, part of, you want nice landscaping, beautiful landscaping, but you also have to make sure pedestrians are protected and safe. You have to make sure other vehicles, proper sight distance. And so that really is what happened here with the landscaping design, is making sure those sight distance, sight triangles are maintained. So that was done. Street lighting, looking at placement of street lights, what type of decorative lightings in certain areas and other standard lighting in others. So we're looking through those. Crosswalk locations, this is an important thing. As I mentioned earlier, this is a complete streets project, so a project for all users. One thing we do not have right now is between Kuntz and Colorado, there is no crosswalk that can take you east-west across the street. And so part of this project is providing some better crosswalk, safe pedestrian crosswalk areas. They're going to be illuminated crosswalk areas, so the ones you push a button and flashing lights come up. We're looking at one at Rhodes Street and one near the Applebee's there in the where I mentioned between Coons and Colorado. And then there's an existing crosswalk north of Stewart by the Arby's there that is there today, but we're looking at adding an illuminated to make that a little safer there in the future. So I did want to point that out because that was important. The public also had input on where these crossing locations were going to be located based off their usage of where they thought they would use them. Roundabout design refinement, I have a couple slides here. There's been a lot of progress there. And it's lots changed since we last saw it here. So I'll go over that on the next slide. But before that, I wanted to give you an update on the gateway feature. There's $25,000 for the construction of a gateway feature there. We had I reported last time I was here about a working group meeting that we had. It was very productive. We made some good decisions on kind of what we wanted to do with that feature. What we're doing with the $25,000 is there's a couple grants that are coming up that we're working with the arts director for the city to pursue to use the $25,000 as a match for a bigger grant so we can do something more major because everybody thought they wanted to do that. We think we have some really good targeted grants that we think will be strong contenders to get. So we'll keep you updated on that. It likely will not be a part of this project, but it could happen during the construction stage, and we're doing everything in construction with this project to accommodate something there in the future. And that means running electrical out to the middle of the roundabout in the case that we want some lighting in the future. So we're trying to be proactive about planning for that in the future. So I couldn't believe this, but the roundabout on the left-hand side there, that is the last time, what you saw last time. That's the stage we were in. So very, very conceptual at that point. I do want to highlight a couple major changes that have happened since then and how it's kind of evolved. This one thing, and I think you can see the picture on the left, the red circle there, we were trying to maintain that sweeping right that's already there on Stewart heading northbound. And there was lots of comments, I believe, from you all, RTC, and also the design team we were encouraging too high of speeds there. And so we were worried about cars going too fast, pedestrian crossings there. So since then, you can see the picture on your right, and it's even been refined more since then, but you can see that the radius there is much tighter now. It's forcing vehicles to, as they enter the roundabout, to go slower, to be on the look for pedestrians that may be crossing. So we've produced a much safer type of roundabout design. And that's about the 20% design level in December. I do the rectangular there on the left-hand side is what I'm going to talk about in the next picture. What we had previously was it was a single lane roundabout, and in the southbound direction you had a bypass lane, so you can see that lane never enters the roundabout. It can just continue to go on south. There's a couple reasons why we've revised this on the new design. We've combined now, and it's a multi-lane roundabout. One is safety with this just the straight shot there with that bypass lane. You're encouraging high speeds again. It's not as safe as an intersection as what this you see here today is. So that was a big driving factor. The other thing is we're making good progress with potential for that Curry connection in the future. That west connection there to Curry Street. Between Rhodes and 10th Street, there is no connection between Carson Street and Curry Street. And what this leads to, and every business we talk to out there, and the city's been aware of this for years, we've been trying to plan, this connection's actually been identified for probably about 15 to 20 years, but people cut through those different businesses to get either from Carson to Curry or Curry to Carson, and that's not a safe scenario. So what we wanted to do was to be proactive is about planning for the future. This connection we think could happen sooner than later. And if we would have done the single lane bypass, we would have been out reconstructing that street whenever that Curry connection and doing a lot of work, possibly having to come back into the middle of the intersection to make it all work. With this new design, if that Curry connection happens, it's going to be pretty minimal construction, tearing up stuff that we've already done. So that's really the focus and the reason why we're at what you see today and how the design is refined. So just to go over the schedule here moving forward, 60%, we're already on our way to starting to refine, look at some more details from our 60% design. We're hoping to be finished up with 90% design around July of 2019, and then final design will happen August, September of 2019. we go to the Board of Supervisors for the final approval to advance that design from 60 to 90. That happens next Thursday, May 16th. And then we'll be coming back to you and RTC and the board in that July, August timeframe for that 90% update as well. Construction, we're on track. We'll have if everything goes as planned, we'll have a construction contract. It should be complete by 2019. They'll start mobilizing, and then construction will start, I believe, the first or second week of January is when they'll be mobilizing before that, but that's when they'll start tearing into the ground. We anticipate it being about, I put 9 to 12 month construction duration. It's looking more like the 9-month timeframe. We're working a lot of those details out on construction right now. It looks like they're probably going to start with utility crews on both the north and south end and be doing utilities working from both directions. And then one of the key, we need to pave before Nevada Day, obviously, but north of Stewart to accommodate the parade that ends there. So that'll be every year of these projects, with these corridor projects, with Carson, with Curry Street. It's always that Nevada Day deadline that's key here because it's such a big event. So the contractor, they're well aware of that. So that's pretty much it with the schedule. And then I did want to talk again about these project communication tools. I mentioned carsonproud.com. I do want to point out there's an FAQ amongst all the other things that you can go there for. There's also an FAQ. It's probably got 20 or 25 frequently asked questions with detailed responses to. So again, another great resource if you're interested in the project. Text subscription service. I talked about this last time. I like to talk about it again because people are using this. You can text Carson Proud to 31996 and it signs you up for automatic updates on the project. That'll probably become more frequent as we get closer to construction and in construction. Social media updates are happening all the time. If you have questions, comments, you can reach out to myself or Tom Grundy, who really knows all the details of the project. His contact information is there. But yeah, we're excited. We're excited about this project and it's moving along nicely. So thanks, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So the project deadline or the completion date is really more the end of October of 2020, right?
Yes.
For Nevada Day, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. There may be
That's
some
the question,
stuff.
people aren't sure, so.
Yeah, so definitely, like I said, the Stewart Street, the plan now is everything will be done by then. If there is some stuff that needs to be done after that, it'll be down south away from where the parade route would be, but we're hoping to have everything wrapped up by then.
Dan, just a comment. Of course, I'm glad to see the changes made to the roundabouts because I know when I first moved here, I wasn't used to the roundabouts that we had in the South. We didn't have roundabouts, So I'm glad to see that it's really become more of a driver-friendly. What are we going to do to really educate the community more on the roundabouts? Because let's face it, everybody really can't drive in roundabouts as maybe as other people can. So what are some of the things we're going to do to acquaint the community and educate the community with the roundabouts?
Yeah, so that's actually a really great comment. We've had that too. It might have been you previously, but we have taken that. I did want to address that with that because it is very important. So first of all, I want to talk about roundabouts just from a design standpoint. I can't tell you how important proper signage and striping entering a roundabout can make a world of difference. It's something, signage and striping is not that expensive from a construction standpoint, but I think we've all been in roundabouts where they're not properly signed or striped, and it can make things very difficult and hard to figure out. So that's one thing that we have a consultant doing our roundabout design. They're very excellent consultant. They do a ton of these, and that's something we talk with them all the time is proper signage and striping. So I did want to point that out because that's key. The other thing, we took your comments very seriously last time. We've been working with our public outreach person here at the city to put out some educational type videos on YouTube. We're also looking, she's planning, I think in June, to film some of our traffic enforcement officers out there in a creative way to make it kind of fun but educational on how to properly use a roundabout and pushing that out to the public. It's taken a lot. She's already planning this and how we've had multiple meetings as far as how to effectively do this. So it's something we're taking very serious because we have had that comment multiple times. We think through that. We're also looking at possible some outreach material, ways to get it out. So I think we can be proactive on our end as far as those types of things. But again, I think the design is key on the signage and striping. And so I think with all those, we'll have a good roundabout that's easy to navigate.
And if I may suggest that on the east side, on Northridge, there's 3 roundabouts that from one end to the other that you have to manipulate. You can go practice there. Stay away from that area. And the other one is Fifth Street. So it's not like we don't have roundabouts, but living in Northridge, you have to negotiate the 3 roundabouts, and it becomes fun after a while. I'll take you there. I'll teach you how to drive. I'll teach you how to drive roundabouts. Okay. So does anybody have any comments? No, I'm worried about you. Okay, any other
Couple of
comments?
questions. Yeah. Exactly where would the additional roundabout to the west be? The Toyabe or Shell, or exactly in that arena? Where are you hoping to get it? And who's in the way? Is it?
The additional roundabout to the west, as far as when that Curry connection's made? Oh, okay. Yeah, so it would be, we haven't officially determined whether it's going to be a roundabout. We think that if that connection goes, it would need to be a roundabout just because there's not a lot of spacing between Carson and Curry to prevent cars backing up into the other roundabout. So we're looking at a roundabout, but it would be at Curry and wherever that future connection is.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is, the problem is Toyabe, the offices to go to the west from the roundabout you're talking about now.
Yes, so the Forest Service is there. They have, there's discussions now as far as them possibly relocating to a new facility in the future, and all those details have not quite worked out yet, but I think there's some good talks there. And so the Forest Service parcel is there where that connection would be, to answer your question.
So what you're revealing tonight, or maybe you've revealed it elsewhere earlier, there'd be another roundabout on Curry at roughly the same.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we haven't quite made that final decision of what it would be, but we believe likely it would possibly be another roundabout to keep that all moving through efficiently.
Oh, Michael.
But I don't want to, I mean, there could be changes to that. I mean, we're
yeah,
very
obviously.
conceptual level at this point,
Obviously,
but that is one of the alternatives we
If the
would look at.
Toyabe talks didn't work out, then
Yeah.
it's sort of a moot point.
Yeah.
I voiced to Tom at that first meeting over at the sheriff's Ormsby room my worries about the speed on the south end coming. People come into Carson, and that's a downhill, and then starts to slowly evolve up. What are the speed limits now that you're talking about? Are they the same as you were talking about at 30%?
Yeah, the speed limits are basically the same as what we were talking about at 30%. It's 25 miles an hour going south from Fifth Street, 25 miles an hour to Stewart Street, 35 miles an hour down to about Clearview, and then it'll ramp up past Clearview to match the NDOT highway.
Well, now you've talked north to south. I was talking south to north. People come into Carson at the south end, going past Costco, et cetera. They go down and then they come back up, and you're saying it's going to be over 35 miles an hour down there until you reach Clearview?
Until it'll, south of Clearview, it'll start dropping down to 35 miles an hour, and then by Clearview, it will be 35 miles an hour
As you're coming north?
as you're coming north.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, it's almost dead stop because of the light right there. So you're going 10 miles an hour, 5.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. We look forward to the next one.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, then, moving on, we are on 4E. And possible action to make a recommendation to the Redevelopment Authority regarding the expenditure of up to $1,443,237,000 from the fiscal year 2020 redevelopment revolving fund to support various events, incentives, and capital improvement project as included in the fiscal year 2020 redevelopment budget and capital improvement program. Lee, didn't we go over this last week? Is this just, last time, this is sort of a recap?
Yeah, let me give a little bit of a higher overview of how redevelopment budgeting and expenditures works. I know I was going to start by saying you've probably seen a lot of this before in the allocation. So what we've been doing over the past few months is budget planning. We've been out signing monies to the next fiscal year and future fiscal years out. Redevelopment is, and all of these expenditures, I would say, are in the tentative budget, the soon-to-be adopted budget by the Board of Supervisors Redevelopment Authority. These are all budgeted expenditures in the redevelopment fund based in part on the allocations and recommendations from RAC. You'll notice a lot of these things in here haven't come from RAC, but they're just budgeted. For example, Nevada Day Farmers Market, Christmas tree lighting are just annual things that are in the budget. Redevelopment is unique in that NRS requires the Board of Supervisors, the Redevelopment Authority and Board of Supervisors to adopt a resolution authorizing the expenditures. Most city expenditures, they're put in the budget and we go do those actions. With Redevelopment Authority, it takes this extra step for them to adopt a resolution authorizing the expenditures. Honestly, past practice has been that most of these, or at least some of these, have not come before RAC before at all. I think for the purpose of just clarity and consistency, I'm bringing them all to you this year, that everything that's in the 603 redevelopment revolving fund, so that you see and make a recommendation, it'll go to the Redevelopment Authority and Board of Supervisors for authorization of the expenditures. So you also notice in your packet included is the last 3 or 4 pages are the presentation from finance on the redevelopment budget. And I've highlighted and actually circled the items that are in this expenditure where you're authorizing the expenditure. This isn't everything in the budget. So these are the things that we're going to go forward, and Nevada Day is going to get their expenditure. We're going to pay them. And so these are those things. But what's not in there are things like special events, which you made a recommendation on earlier. The Children's Museum, which you made a recommendation on earlier. The infrastructure funds that are there, which you would approve an individual project. Downtown signage, which you will approve an individual project for those. So these are the routine items, so that city staff can go and make these expenditures. It includes the incentives for the car dealers, for example. You're authorizing $50,000 for the facade improvement program. That's just to authorize the expenditure, so the board can authorize the expenditure, but then individual expenditures still have to come back to RAC for approval for those facade improvements. So that's kind of a high-level overview of what these are. I do want to drill down and focus a little bit that anticipating you might have some questions on are the downtown street, that I've highlighted up there, downtown street improvements, which are $200,000, $100,000 for power line undergrounding, and $85,000 for Curry Street gas lamp replacement. These are budget items that in our long-range budgeting plan are those amounts each year ongoing. So and Dan Stuckey, city engineer, staying here in case you have any questions on this, but the goal is to use these funds to complete as much as possible for those improvements in any given year. As noted in the staff report, the focus for this upcoming year will be Curry Street between Musser and 5th Street to link to the new improvements, and to combine all of these types of sidewalk improvements, undergrounding power lines, and replacing the gas lamps in one project when you're digging up and tearing up the street and everything, is to make that, try to do that all at once. Additionally, another priority is East Telegraph Street between Carson Street and Plaza Street. So I just wanted to let you know, should these recommendation and the board authorize these, we would still come back with updates from Public Works on more details on these projects, but that's kind of the general plan we're thinking at this point. Did I summarize that correctly? Yes. And so I'm bringing it, again, it's full kind of just so you can see the whole budget, whole redevelopment, the whole 603 redevelopment revolving fund that requires this extra authorization. And so we're asking you to make a recommendation to approve these expenditures. We'll take it to the board in June. Any questions on that?
I don't have any questions. Does anybody have any questions? This is basically what we discussed last time. That's what I said. It seems like a recap. So we definitely would like to have the downtown finished, the parking lot and all of that. So get it done, get it over with, and let's get on with other things, okay? So do you have any questions, Michael? No? All right.
I would add in the motion that to address kind of one of the
Oh,
things
we
that
have
you
to do a
brought.
motion, I'm sorry.
No, but I want to point out something in the motion that I've even underlined in your proposed motion on your staff report, because this has come up. So I think this addresses your concern about expenditures in a timely manner. So we're authorizing these subject to the projects being completed in FY 2020 unless additional time is granted by the Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee, and any unused funds at the end of 2020 shall be subject to reallocation. That's not to say some of these funds won't be carried forward and bundled, for example, with the improvement projects for future, but we'll come back to you with next year's budget and specifically have you take action to do that if that's needed for any particular expenditure. But I think generally it's addresses unless it's extended, these funds need to be expended within the fiscal year. Does that address your concerns you've raised in the past, Vice Chair? Yeah.
I have no concerns because I already felt we adopted these, so. Okay, so apparently we need a motion.
I'll go ahead and move to recommend to the Redevelopment Authority approval of the expenditure of up to $1,443,237 for the proposed projects and incentives, subject to the projects being completed in fiscal year 2020, unless additional time is granted by the Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee, and any unused funds at the end of fiscal year 2020 shall be subject to reallocation.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So moved. Okay, so moving right along. Discussion and possible action to provide direction to staff regarding the creation of an application for capital improvement and public infrastructure projects requested as part of the annual budget allocation process. If you remember, this is something that came up last time, so thank you for putting this on, because we certainly make the applicants for $2,000 go through amazing hoops that, half of the packet is for $2,000. So go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, as we were going, again, as I've mentioned in the past, we didn't have the problem of having money for a number of years in the past, and we've had started to have some redevelopment funds available. So various departments and projects have come forward requesting funds. So it led to this idea and suggestion, which is very good, that we create an application like we have for other applicants, so that the Citizens Committee and Redevelopment Authority get the information that's needed to make a proper decision if it's an appropriate expenditure for the Redevelopment Authority. So I frankly had a lot of other things to work. I was kind of planning on mocking up an application, but due to time constraints, just thought I'd address the items that need to be, you don't necessarily need to see what it looks like, but just have provided a list of items that I think should be included based on the policies that are in the policies now and the specific objectives of the redevelopment area. So I'm happy to take it. I have a list of things that I after looking at other applications and what the policies say, I put together a list, but I'd be happy to take any other recommendations. And then based on your recommendations, I'll draft up a an application.
Okay, I think that's wonderful because, just like the Roscoe Park, all of a sudden they've got the money. So there's a lot of other avenues other than redevelopment to go through. It just seems like this was an easy touch to get monies where there's monies elsewhere, and that we could use probably monies for other things that are more in line with what we're doing. So any other comments?
Well, I don't know that I understood exactly what Lee said there, but you said you had several things and you'd be happy to add. But since I don't know what you have, I don't know what to add.
Okay, I have them summarized on the screen up there. They're in the staff report, but obviously the department applicant project, some basic information, written project description, expected date of completion. I think that's obviously something for planning purposes when they would do it. Total project cost. I think here, getting into kind of where the more important things are, is the lower half of this, which are the total, what are the sources of funding, what other sources are available, and I would add to that, what other sources are you seeking, that would coincide with some other applications, not just what you have, but where else are you trying to get money, which goes along with a written explanation for the need for redevelopment funds, so you understand why they're even asking for redevelopment funds. I would include the redevelopment area objectives for each area because they're different for Area 1 downtown and South Carson Street. And so you want to know how this project is in compliance with those objectives, which objectives it meets in those areas. And then we have factors identified in the redevelopment authority policies and procedures for incentives that include, and I think they were brought up during the meeting last time, encouraging the creation of new business or other appropriate development. 2, creates jobs or other business opportunities for nearby residents. 3, increases local revenues from desirable resources, which could be events, things that draw people into the town. 4, increases levels of human activity in the redevelopment area or the immediate neighborhood in which the redevelopment area is located. Or 5, it possesses attributes that are unique either as to type or use or level of quality and design. So those are right out of the policies. And so those are a little bit more explanation why they need redevelopment funds, what other sources, and how they meet redevelopment goals.
Thank you. I knew it was in the report and I did look at it, but I just wanted to get that
Sure.
on the record.
Thank you.
Just one small point related to what you raised and Member Hanneman raised about sources of funding. So I think there's 3 different areas that are similar but different. So sources of funding, where you're seeking funding, and what funding you may be eligible for. Just kind of getting to, if you may not be seeking funding from all the eligible sources or all the sources that you would be eligible for funding from. Just to make that distinction.
Yeah, and I think Ronnie's point about the Roscoe Park is something that concerned me when we went through the last group because I didn't feel some of these things were attached to the mission of the Citizens Committee and the way it's set up to do certain things. And I don't see people going to that park, who are from Lake Tahoe, let's say.
Well, I think it's a good policy, and thank you, Lee, for putting it together, and can't wait to see the finished project.
I think it'll help limit the number of applications. I think it'll help narrow down the applications to what this should be. I mean, in fairness to those and asking for that money, they know they're in the redevelopment area, but didn't know what guidelines that we'd be looking at. So, I agree. It's very good to get these in place.
And I think we're all learning still, and we always have new people on, and it's good for them to have all this information as well. Any other discussion on this at all? Nope. Okay. Let's see, makes recommendations. Let me see. Okay. The only other thing that I have, Lee, is on the very last section, of this particular topic, you did include the redevelopment plan for the Carson City redevelopment project number 1, dated February 6, 1986. When was the last time this was updated? Because there's buildings here that were referred to that are gone, and will never be back, and it might be like the V&T Roundhouse, promote the restoration of the V&T Roundhouse. Well, a lot of the bricks of the V&T Roundhouse are in California. So it might be something to look at in the future to update this. I don't know when it was done, so.
I think the only updates have been to add, well, I know Costco is added, but there's not an amendment to the text of the document. It's stayed in place.
Just seems 1986, 1986, we had, what, 20,000, 25,000 people or whatever, you guys would know better. And these structures are gone, so it just might be worth updating. That's the only comment I have, so. Pardon me?
Third of a century is a while.
A third of a century, okay. All right, so discussion only, we're at number 5, staff reports, an update on matters relating to RAC. Lee?
I don't have anything else for tonight.
Okay, future agenda items for the next RAC meetings. Does anybody have any future agenda items? Michael, no, other than the one I just suggested. And then RAC member reports and comments. We'll start with you, Michael.
No report from me, Madam Chair.
Nothing for you, okay? No reports, okay. The only report I have is that it's pretty exciting that we are now going into the second week of May, and the end of May begins our big season for the downtown, and sort of it's exciting for that. So without further ado, the public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Lisa, you're the only member of the public. Do you have anything you would like to say? Come on, we need this on the record.
This is Lisa Taylor with the Cooperative Extension Service. I just want to go on record thanking you all for the time and efforts you spend, because I'm new to the area, but certainly have learned about all the amazing things that are going on in our community. And with your efforts, that even makes it more important as we think about how we might approach you, how we might talk with you about some things we can do to contribute. I just wanted to thank you.
I hope you have a wonderful event this summer. So
Well,
money will protect those animals.
we really appreciate it.
All right. So without further ado, I'd like to entertain a motion for adjournment. So move. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.